I am a Yank in Sussex. Here I'm returning to the subject of the very first video on this channel, Bramber Castle, which I uploaded just a bit over 3 years ago. As I've said before, Bramber Castle is of particular interest to me because I can see it from my backyard. It was my original plan to produce a second documentary video about the castle, focusing mainly on the family that built and occupied it for a couple of hundred years, and I'm anticipating completing that for upload next month. Since the start of this channel 3 years ago, I've acquired a succession of drones, or quadcopters, and have used them occasionally to add content. Most recently, I acquired a DJI Mini 2 drone, which, due to its weight class, I'm able to legally use over built-up areas, such as you can see here in this video. One particular video featuring footage exclusively taken from my drones was uploaded just 3 months ago. It's called Drone Flights in Sussex and Devon. See the link above and in the description. So this video is another drone video. Since the weather was unusually cooperative for drone flying on the 5th of January 2022, I decided to circumnavigate, or is that circumfly, Bramber Castle. So after positioning the drone on the southwest of the castle, I began circling it. This was flown at 115 meters or 377 feet above ground level. The major features to see are that lonely partial tower wall that sticks up in the air about 77 meters, the tree-covered motte, the partial curtain wall, and the church, which is still in use. One reason for this circumfly is to observe how high the knoll on which the castle was built stands above the River Ader's former estuary. That estuary, seen in the distance as we begin the circumfly, lies about 9 feet or 2.75 meters above sea level, and before the embankments along the river were built, probably in the 16th century, would have been covered with salty water twice a day when the tide was high at the mouth of the river. The top of the knoll itself, without considering the motte, stands an average of 80 feet or 25 meters or so above the estuary. This castle has a moat, but it was not dug until some years after the walls were erected, probably when the wooden walls were replaced by stone. The slope of the knoll itself provided an adequate defense from attack, so it didn't need to be dug immediately. It's possible to perceive the moat in the circumfly, but mostly only because the trees growing near the bottom of the moat top out at a lower height than the ones on the edges. Flying when the deciduous trees have lost their leaves might make it slightly easier to see this. Keep in mind that when the castle was an active fortification, there were no trees on it or around it. If there had been trees when they first began building the castle, which seems likely, these would have been removed to make way for construction, and would have been used for building material. Afterwards, the land around the castle would have been kept clear of trees, or for that matter, brush. This would have been done in order to keep the castle more defensible, since attackers wouldn't then be able to hide from the defenders. As the drone gets more on the east side of the castle, we can see the town of Steyning stretching out in the distance. Steyning is an old town which was originally founded by the Saxons sometime in the 700s AD. The traditional founder of the city was Saint Cuthman, and the large church, which you might be able to see in the distance if you look closely, was originally built by him with help from the locals. As we fly over the estuary itself, you can see that the edge of the castle's knoll comes down to ground level and would have been covered by water at high tide. The moat does go around the entire knoll, but down there on the eastern side, the moat is just barely lower than the level of the estuary. Of course, when they dug the moat, it was probably deeper than today, so it would have held water at all times. But eventually it would have filled up with silt from the daily tidal action. If you walk the bottom of the moat today, though, it's still perceivable as part of the moat. As we come around the corner, the church, which is dedicated to St. Nicholas, comes into view. The church is as old as the castle, and so has been in operation for about 950 years. Parts of the church are genuinely that old, but of course there has been a lot of repairs and additions since it was first built. As you can see, and as per usual, the churchyard is well populated with graves. It's been used for that purpose for much of the history of the church, but except for a brief period at the very beginning, burials were not permitted, since the St. Cuthman Church in Steyning had that privilege. Today, the oldest burials in the churchyard seem to have been in the 18th century but of course those which were older probably lie below the newer ones. The village of Bramber, which the drone is flying over at this point, didn't exist at the time the castle was built, but grew up because of the castle. Bramber's High Street, actually just called The Street, which you'll be able to see tracking to the east, was laid upon a causeway that the castle's builders created in order to connect the castle with the village of Upper Beeding farther to the east, and then there was a long bridge which went over the river. Bramber is a very picturesque and peaceful little village with a population of about 800. There are 2 hotels, the Old Tollgate Hotel and the Castle Inn, and 3 restaurants, which are the Tollgate, the Bramber Dragon, and the Maharaja. The Dragon and the Maharaja feature Chinese and Indian-style food. Another historic building in Bramber is St. Mary's House, a late 15th century timber-framed house on a site associated with the Knights Templar. This ends our circumfly of Bramber Castle. As I bring the drone back to its launch point for a rendezvous with its pilot, that's me, I reflect upon the oddity of the last couple of years, the pandemage, the lockdowns, the vaccinations, and the masks. May we end this new year of 2022 much better off than we began it. This has been a production of a Yank in Sussex. If you've enjoyed the video, please click the like button. If you haven't already done so, feel free to click the subscribe button along with the notification bell in order to be notified when new videos are posted on the channel. May you have a very nice day.